Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in this world, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And tonight, all the way from Brazil, live and direct, we have the amazing Fabio Lisboa. Big round of applause. Over to you, Fabio.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So, the first story is one that my grandpa used to tell me, and I heard that it's also a Nazarene story, but my grandpa would say that's a Pedro Malazartes story. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about Pedro, but just to get to know him. One day, Pedro was invited to a duck hunting, and he didn't like hunting at all, but he was with the captain. The captain owns a farm. He was called Capitan. So he was the owner of the farm. He was a very important man. So if this important man invite you to something, you better go. So Pedro Malazartes, which was a smart man, he went to that duck hunting. Well, by the time they got there, this farm owner, this captain, got his weapon, aimed the duck, and aim and shoot. And Pedro said, "Bravo!" But the captain got mad. "What do you mean, Pedro? Bravo? Why bravo? I missed the duck." And Pedro calmly said, "But who told you I said bravo to you and not to the duck?" And that's the way Pedro Malazartes is. So, to tell a little bit about Portuguese. Oi, tudo bem? Como estão? Eu vi que Letícia está aí também. Olá, Letícia. Olá. You see, you don't speak Portuguese, most of you, but I guess you could understand. I said hello, and my friend is here, Letícia from Brazil, and maybe another friends. Brazilians, they're not, most of them are usually not on time for things, but they'll come. I guess they'll come. If they don't come today, they'll come tomorrow or other day. No problem. And speaking about language, I guess you realize this is not my first language, right? So try not to be careful, try not to be worried about pronunciation, accuracy, because storytelling is not about accuracy. It's a dialogue between hearts. So I count on your generous ears, okay? And you guys have always been nice, and that's why storytellers keep telling, because we got wonderful listeners. And Pedro Malazartes, he was a wonderful listener. He listened to the stories. He knew what was going around, and then he would act. But sometimes he was misunderstood, like Nasruddin. One day, his wife got the clock, and the clock was sometimes late. The clock never had the time right. And Pedro Malazartes' wife asked, "Pedro, would you fix that watch?" And Pedro said, "No problem." He got a hammer and boom. And his wife said, "What have you done, Pedro? Now it's not working. The clock stopped. And Pedro said, no, 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 I can see some changes. Some things are better. Now the watch, at least twice a day, you can see the correct time. And that's how Pedro is. Pedro Malas Artes. What is Malas Artes? Malas Artes come from a Spanish word, which is like something like bad arts. And my mom, when I was a kid, she would say, Fabio, don't do arts. And I was like, well, but I like painting and writing and creative stuff. But she didn't mean that kind of art, When you are a spoiled kid, when you want your freedom and want to play, maybe your mom, if you come from a Brazilian Portuguese speaking country, maybe she would say that. Não faça arte. Não faça esse tipo de arte. Arte is art. So don't do that kind of art. You see how playful we are? Like you're doing a mess and your mom is saying you're doing art. And that's the beauty of story. That's the beauty of languages, And that's the beauty of when we tell stories, we start to think and we start to remember things. We remember our own story. And that's why I remember, I'll tell this story to honor my grandma, which was a Black woman. And she inherited, she came, my great grandma was a slave, so she inherited the poverty left for the slaves. But she also inherited from Africa the strength and the creative, and also a kind of a power that that's why some people call her a benzedeira, which is a person who can cure people. Benzedeira is like a person who blesses. Benção in Portuguese means bless, right? So that's why I always, when I meet my grandma, I would ask her, Grandma, bless me. And my brother, he would say that too. Grandma, bless me. And this is a respectful way to meet, to greet your grandparents. That's not most common today, but I still remember the respect I had for her. She was a illiterate woman, but she was really wise. Like she knew how to choose some plants and transform those plants into medicine. She would cook a tea or something very, sometimes tasteful, sometimes ugly, but it definitely can cure you, especially if you believe, So I believe in stories. I believe in the power of words to heal people too. And that's why I'll tell this story from Africa that I heard from my friend, from a student of mine called Akawan. And he told that story saying that in Africa, I are us. Once, the body was over a tree relaxing, but the mind, the brain was thinking, how smart I am. And you know what? The whole body needs me. I am so special. But at the same time, the heart beating very emotionally said, no, wait, I am very important too. If I stop for a moment, the body will die. But the eyes said, well, if I don't see, if I don't look around, maybe look for food, you're gonna perish anyway. Yeah, but the ears, they said, well, if we don't listen to what is going on around, maybe we'll miss a lot, and maybe we'll get in trouble. And and the leg said, yeah, but if you hear a danger and you can't run, what can you do? You perish anyways. So no, I am the most important, and every part of the body, they had very strong arguments to say they were the most important. And that discussion was getting to know the whole body, tired, and then the eyes saw food coming from this magnificent tree. The ears heard the birds, so they knew where the birds were. That's gonna be fruits. And the legs took the body there. The arms took the hands up there, and the hands took a mango, a delicious mango, and the fingers peeled the mango. The nose smelled the mango, and the mouth open to eat the mango, and the mouth kept quiet, and all the parts of the body were complaining, and the mouth got quiet and quiet and quiet until the whole body understood its message, that every part is important. And the soul understood that too. And when the soul understood that too, and the body was harmonized again, the mouth opened in a big smile and got a grab of that delicious mango. And that's why people keep sharing stories, keeping sharing the flavor of each story. And that's why people say, still in Africa and in some world storytelling cafes, I are us. Oh, I can see some I can see some applause. Thank you.
Oh, you can.
Well, the next story is also about food. You know, I don't know what time is in your country, but here it's past 2:00, and I just had breakfast, and I'm starting to get hungry. Not only hungry for stories, but you know, and that reminds me another Pedro Malazartes stories. When he was hungry, he would do as it's very common to storytellers. He would ask for food, but he even didn't need to ask, you know. Well, you see this story and you see what Pedro did. Because when he was in this new town, he wanted to have a nice meal, and he started to talk with people. And people said, no, no, Pedro, here, no, you can't get food for free. No. And he said, oh, what do you mean? Of course, I'll have a free lunch, and I'm going to go to that mansion in the mountain, in the hill, because I think it's a nice house, nice farm. Probably she's got some real fresh vegetables and fruits and everything. And that's what I want. But people laughed and said, are you crazy, Pedro? That's this stingy woman. She's angry. She's terrible. Nobody goes there. Don't go there. She wouldn't even open the door for you. And he said, well, at least I'll try. And you know what? If you smell something, give me 15 minutes or half an hour. Go there. Go to the hill, climb the hill, and I'll be there. And I can share the food with you. And people were suspicious about Pedro, but Pedro went there. He knocked at the door. And the woman opened just a little bit. And she said, what do you want? And Pedro said, oh, I'm here to invite you to have some lunch with me. And the woman said, no, no. What do you mean invite me? No, we don't have food here. Go away. And Pedro was very, touched. And he said, you don't have any food there? So I can share my food with you, no problem. And she said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, I can cook for you a wonderful stone soup. And the woman said, stone soup? What is that? Yes, stone soup, it's delicious. I can cook this delicacy. No, it's wonderful. And the woman said, I don't know, maybe. I'm curious about it. She was really curious. And Pedro said, well, you just need to borrow a pan, a big pan, so I don't need to use your kitchen. I can go in on the yard, and I can make a fire and use your pan and do a delicious stone soup. And the woman said, okay, let's see. And she got a big pan for Pedro. And Pedro put the stone, and he said, well, let's not burn the stone, By any chance, you would have some water? And the woman said, well, water, no problem. I can have some water, yes. And she brought the water and filled the pan. And Pedro would put the stone in there. But he said, well, actually, if you have some onions just to make it more flavor, it's gonna be great. And she said, well, some onions, okay, no problem. And Pedro chopped the onions and put the onions there and put the stone in there, and that thing started to smell good, but Pedro said, well, as you can see, it's already smelling good, but it's gonna be even better if you give me some parsley. Oh, okay. She had it. And maybe, some potatoes, and she also had it. And some carrots and some meat and some beans, And Pedro was putting everything, and that soup was smelling delicious. And the smell went all the way down to the city, to the village. And all the villagers, they were coming and coming and coming. And by the time the soup was ready, the woman was happy and Pedro was happy. And he looked at that big pan, and Pedro said, well, what do you think? It's wonderful, but that's a lot of food, isn't it? And the woman thought, I am having a real good time here. What does this man mean? And he said, well, I could invite some friends and we can have the soup together, the famous Pedro Malazartes stone soup together. What do you think? And she said, well, that's perfect. I live alone here. It's good to have some company for a change. And Pedro said, huh? And everyone, the whole city went there and they shared all the food. It was really delicious. And when everyone finished, they look at the pan and there was only Pedro's stone. And he said, well, now let me go because I need to cook more delicious meals with stone and make some more stone soups.
Oh.
Thank you. You know, I'm Fabio. If you're here new and you don't know me, I'm Fabio Lisboa from Brazil, telling stories. And for those who already know me, I'm still Fabio. That much doesn't change. But when we tell stories, we can imagine whoever we want to be. And sometimes we also discover who we really are. And my name is related to a Greek word, a very ancient word, which means feijão in my language, in Portuguese, feijão. Fava, also, that's very close to the meaning. Fava, Fabio, which means beans. So you just heard a story with a stone soups and beans in it. And, you know, when I was a kid, I didn't like that much beans, but my mom is a nutritionist and she always explained me that this was an important food. And also my mom said that it has iron and it makes you strong. It has protein and amino acids. That's why UNESCO told in, I think, 2016, that was the year of beans. Yeah. And then my father would say, when I was a kid, I didn't have much to play. I didn't have much to eat, but we had rice and beans, feijão e arroz, and that's enough. And also, when he learned to read when he was 11, because when he was young, he had to work. Like when he was 8, he had to work as a shoe shine boy, and then when he realized he could reach any country, any dream by reading, he never stopped reading, and he taught us the importance of reading. Maybe that's why I'm still thinking it's so important to share stories, to read stories, and to get to know each other's stories. And when we know, and I ask you to think about what are your names, what does your name mean? And if you don't know, try to guess, try to ask your parents if they are still alive, why they choose that name, what's the story behind. And then in the end of the set, we can share some stories about names and about other things, whatever you want. But that's the story about my name. And I'll tell you, the last story is also a story that my mom used to tell me. and I also the beginning of the story. And then the other story is a traditional tale that I heard from Gislaine Matos, which is a very a famous and a good friend, Brazilian friend, which tells those traditional tales. So my mom used to tell me, when you have something that you want to remember, try to open the little drawer of your brain, put the memory in there, and close it. And then maybe one day when you need it, you just need to open the drawer and take the memory. And sometimes you share that memory, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful way when you start remembering stories from your childhood, from our difficulties, from the way we play. Like, as I told you, my father, he would grab a brick and he would put a cord in it and pull and think that would be a car. So, and he would use the corn and make a doll with the corn, so he had to use a lot of creative to play. And nowadays sometimes the kids they have like the toy already made, and they turn on the toy and the toy plays with itself. It's terrible. So the kid doesn't have space to imagine. So when we tell stories, when we put good stories in our drawers and take them out, it's a good way to keep remembering good things and sharing good things. Well, but in this traditional tale, there was a master. There was a jewelry, which is also a stone cutter, and he had the power to transform rough rock into something else, into something precious. And a lot of people wanted to become his apprentice, but he was a little bit picky. He wanted someone to really pass that knowledge on, to really share the knowledge. But one day, this man, this young guy entered the home and the store of the stone cutter, and the stone cutter realized this man had bright eyes, and he said, "Can I be your apprentice?" And the man said, "I can see hope in your eyes, but are you perseverant? Are you resilient?" And he said, yes, and I'm gonna perceive my dreams, and maybe one day they'll come true. I want to be a stone cutter and a jewelry and a jewel maker, just like you. I don't know how to pronounce that easy, but I want to be a joalheiro like you. He came from another country, maybe. And he didn't know how to pronounce perfect things, but he had his dream. And this lapidavist, this stone cutter, he said, "Okay, if you're ready, just open your hand." And the young man opened his hand, and the stone cutter went and started to open some little drawers until he found a precious thing. As you can see, it was bright like diamond and a little bit greenish like emerald. As you can see, it is a jade. It's a jade. And he said, "Okay, hold the jade." And the man hold the jade. And the master said, "Now you go and hold it for 6 months." And said, 6 months? Really? Yes, 6 months. Go. And he went away, thinking, what am I going to do in 6 months with no hand, Well, and he didn't know how to act because that was not the best hand he had. So he had to learn a lot of things with this new hand. It was terrible. It was very difficult. And, he was that kind of optimist guy. And even taking a shower, he would use it to scrub his body and this and that. He would think that would be a good thing to learn. But he wasn't realizing what he was learning. He was getting tired. And 3 months later, he thought about leaving the stone for a while, doing very fast what he needed to do. And then he would grab the stone. Nobody would know, At least the master wouldn't know. But sometimes I ask the kids, who else could know that? And one day the kid said, well, God will know. And I say, yeah. Besides God, also. And they always say, yes, you. He would know. And then he didn't leave the stone for 1 minute. He held the stone for long 6 months. And after that, he went to the stone cutter store again. He went to the jewelry and knocked the door. And he was very happy. And the stone cutter said, wow. So open your hand. And the simple movement of opening his hand was very pleasant. And the jade was there. And the jeweler got the jade, look at it. It was intact. Put it back in the little drawer. Close it. But then he started opening more drawers. And behind the desk, the young man was sweating and thinking, what is this man going to do? And he got another stone. And that stone was also shining. It was like a diamond, greenish diamond, a mix between diamond and emerald. As you can see, it was another jade stone. And the man said, okay, open the other hand now. And the young man opened his other hand. And the master put. And the master said, now you go and stay 6 months with that jade, with that rock again. And the young man said, oh my, but he didn't learn anything. He thought, well, that's terrible because it's useless. I'm gonna give up. I'm gonna throw this rock in the streets or in the head of this master. That's terrible. And he was opening the door to leave. But all of a sudden, he looked at his hand, he looked at the jade, he looked at the master and said, Master, wait. This rock is not jade. And in that time, the eyes of the master was shining. And he said, yes, you were right. It's a perfect fake jade, but not so perfect that you, my new apprentice, wouldn't realize. And that's why we can keep sharing those gems of wisdom if we put them in the little drawers of our brains. And my mom used to say, if we have like experience not that good if we face difficulties, if we want to see someone but for some reason we can't, maybe we should put only the good things. If we are angry, maybe we don't put the anger in there, we put what we learn about that. And if we do that, maybe we can transform anger, we can transform when we miss someone in good things to remember. And those things would become gems of wisdom, gems of love that we can share with everyone around the world. Okay, that's my wish for you and for everyone in this whole world.
Whoa. Fabio, marvelous.
Excellent.
Ah. Whoa. What a set. And everyone can unmute themselves. You have to unmute yourself. If you want to talk to Fabio, you unmute yourself, because we can't actually take him into the bar to buy him a drink, which we should be able to. So we should be all raising a glass at this moment. But where it is possible, if you want to pop something in his little hat, so he can go out and buy himself a drink later. That you'll find next to, if you're on the website, you'll find the hat. Pop something in it, but it's great. And if anyone has got any, unmute yourselves. And if anyone's got any comments or just wants to say hello, I can see people from all over the world here. Bob, you're in New Mexico. Stephanie, you're in Cirencester up there, or just outside Cirencester in England. And I haven't the faintest idea where the rest of you are. I think that's Norman. Norman is probably Norman Perrin in Canada, by the look of the number of books. He's got the biggest library I've ever come across. You've seen it virtually. And if any, because we've had 2 new countries on today at the cafe. We had Australia this morning, only the second Australian teller. I put that on at 10 o'clock in the morning because it's 7 o'clock in the evening in Australia. And when we normally, this is the middle of their night. If I did a 6 o'clock, it'd be 3 o'clock. We've had our first teller from Brazil today. So if there's any other tellers out there from any country in the world, we are the World Storytelling Cafe. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me and especially for live, please do. Anyway, I'll shut up and you can talk to Fabio. They've all gone very shy, Fabio.
Fabio, I'm Janet, and I'm unmuted, yes. I would like to ask a question about a particular folk tale. I was traveling up the Amazon about 12 years ago, and I came across that carnival for Boy Bumba, which is a folk tale about a bull. And I wondered, is that just a folk tale in North Brazil, or is it over the whole of Brazil?
Your sound is very low, Janet. I couldn't understand everything. I just heard that you wanted to know about a folk tale about a bird.
No, a bull.
Huh?
Bull. Toro. A bull. So folk tale about a toro, a bull in the
what is
Amazonas.
about? No, we have folk tales about turtles all over the place. It's not only from Amazon.
No, not turtles. Toro, a bull. Woo!
A bull.
A bull.
A bull. Okay, a bull.
Wait. So, I can't raise my sound, I don't think. Just let me see. No, I can't do that. I just wondered if it was a folk tale only in Amazona. It's about a woman who wants the tongue of a bull to eat.
Ah, okay, okay. That's called Bumba Meu Boi. I think someone wrote it, right? Who wrote that? José. José to everyone. Thank you, José. José Carlos Jr. So it is very famous. It comes from the Amazon region. It's also in Parintins. We have a big festival with the bulls fighting against each other. Not real bulls. They're
Se é do norte, ela quer saber se o Bumba...
the teams. And so but this story is very famous in Brazil. So though it came from that region, it spread all over the place. So all over the place we celebrate this Bumba Meu Boi things with a kind of resurrection story. It's a famous story about many people around the world, but here we have this settling with this captain and this woman who wants the tongue very bad of that specific bull, and they kill the bull, but then the bull resurrects very briefly. It's something like this. Nice to know that you know some Brazilian culture.
I saw it, and it was magnificent.
Nice.
It's fascinating that stone soup turns up everywhere in the world. It's I remember I picked up a hitchhiker, and his grandmother had been a Hungarian gypsy, and I you know, if you have a hitchhiker, you have to ask them if they have any stories. It's the rules, isn't it? Do you happen? They'll tell you about their grandmother, and I say, did your grandmother tell you any stories? And he said, yes, I remember one, and it was stone soup. And it's nails in Scotland. It's nail soup, and I think every country. It's
stones taste much better than nails. Come on.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
How about the names? I'm curious about to know if anyone has a story about their own name, a brief story. Or if you want to do another comment, whatever.
Well, I did look up John, and John comes from Hebrew, and it turns out it's Greek, and it's everywhere from Greek onwards, and but it's graced by Yoah. It's kind of, but I haven't had any grace the whole life, so there's. But I think Julio, where are you? Are you still with us, Julio? Are you still driving the bus?
And you're looking for Norman. Norman's there. Now, not only the books. I can see Norman there.
Yeah. Well, if you, John, your name also is the same name as Ian and Jean, and so your name has gotten around a bit.
It's absolutely, and in Romania, it's how do you pronounce it, Julio? I'm not even going to try.
It's either Yon or Yuan.
Yuan. I think people tell me they have the same name as me, and it has no spelling that's similar at all, and it sounds like it. So, Yon.
I call him Juan. I said, no, it's not Juan.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, it's the commonality. There's an enormous commonality of stories across the world. On Monday night on the cafe at 6 this time, actually, and it will be another live one. Well, some we pre-recorded and some live. We're doing Cinderella stories. I mean, there's over 400 different versions of Cinderella. So someone sent me an Australian one. There's going to be a Moroccan story. I think David down in David Thompson down in Austin is telling an ancient Egyptian one, which is probably the first one. I maybe do a Welsh Gypsy one, and so we'll just see that whole sort of world variation of the same stories. It's brilliant. And our next international night, while I've got you all here, and it'll be really early in the morning in Brazil, because it's kind of we're doing shows at sort of times that are good for people in whichever country they're in. So we've got Deepa Karan from India in India next Saturday, but she's going to be on 2 o'clock in the afternoon in London time, so that's probably something ridiculous in the morning in Brazil. You won't even have had your first cup of coffee. But there's that. So, but all the stories, everything can be caught up with in the archive. So we've probably got about 200 hours of stories in the archive at the moment from storytellers from all over the world. So, now we've got one from Brazil in the archive.
That's wonderful, John, and I'd like to thank you for the invitation, and also I'd like to thank Mariella, who heard some of my stories, who gave me some advice, and she also told me there was another version of that story about the parts of the body that she heard before. But the part of the body that got angry was not that nice as the mouth. It was another part. Then you ask her one day, what kind of story is that? And I'd like to thank Sarah for bringing a lot of people to listen to me, my friend Nigel and everyone. I don't know if she's there, but then you tell her I'm thanking her, and Carol here, my girlfriend, come here, show yourself. She protect me from my own cats because the cats wanted to drop the tripod many times. and she helped me to put this kind of Brazilian clothes because she works with that. And I'd like to thank all the storytellers, all the people, my friends, and everyone who supports me, who believe in the tellings, because those are not my stories. I just put some clothes in it, but those are ancient stories that deserve to be told, and not only in English, in Portuguese, in Italian, in Arab, and sometimes English unite us. So let's try. Let's make it even more global, not only English, but also the stories. That's my message.
We're quite happy to have on the cafe people talking in their native tongue. You don't have to be speaking English to be on at the cafe. We've had some Spanish speakers. Sometimes we have people sort of doing part bilingual, so they'll do, especially some of the Hindi tellers, because it's such a beautiful sounding language. It's a shame to have it all in translation in English. So, I mean, if people speak in their own languages, there's a rhythm there. So, Eve, so you're all invited. You're all invited.
Good.
Fabio, I just wanted to thank you for not only the stories, but the spirit that you tell them in. It's really wonderful. It's great to be here listening today.
Really inspiring, Fabio. Really inspiring.
Thank you, Bob.
I think we're hearing a heart that is very loud.
Oh.
Can I ask how that last story, the story about the gem cutter, how that story came to you? It's a wonderful story.
I read it in a book which is called O Ofício do Contador de Histórias, which stands for the work of the storyteller, which is written by Gislaine Matos, which is a Brazilian storyteller, my friend and a real teacher of storytellers, and also with Ino Sorsi, which is she's based in UK. She's African, but based in UK. She's another wonderful storyteller in Source. So they have this story. They had a lot of stories, but it's written in Portuguese. Bob, you gotta learn Portuguese so you can get to know those stories. Did you know that story before in another version?
No, I didn't, but it brought to mind an encounter that I had many years ago when I first came to New Mexico. I went up into the mountains where there were a lot of small little, still mostly Spanish-speaking villages. There was a wood carver there who was a master wood carver. He did a lot of carvings of the saints. And in that conversation, one of the things that he told me was that he was looking for an apprentice, and he was having a hard time finding an apprentice, and that he put out basically to the village an ultimatum that he was going to stop carving. He would make no more carvings unless a young person came to him that he could teach within the next year. I don't know what happened. I haven't been back to that village, but I've never forgotten that you know, how important it is to find someone to pass on your art to. So the story reminded me of that encounter.
Wow, that's a powerful, real story. I have a little story, real one about that. It's about this Zen master, and he knows how to deal with those little trees called bonsai. You know, those little trees that Japanese people. It's an art, and this old man teaches people, and his nephew told me, and this nephew was a really old man. So I said, wow, this uncle of him is gonna be like an ancient guy, a really old guy. And he said, yeah, but my uncle, when people go there, he's very strict. He says, when people ask him, how long does it last, the course, the bonsai course? And he says, 15 years. And that little man said, well, what, 15 years is too long. I can't. And the master says, well, you can choose another express courses, 1 hour, 3 days, whatever, but it's not real bonsai. You gotta learn bonsai in 15 years. He said, yeah, but it's too long. And the master said, if you're here because you want to learn that, right? So if you don't start now, 15 years passed and you don't learn the bonsai. If you start now, in 15 years you learn. So the man made his application for that. I don't know if he stayed for 15 years also, but he started the course. That's a real story also.
Okay, Fabio, the story about the stone, you know what it made me think of, having heard second time, is that a story is like that stone. You have to hold it for a long time before you know it.
Yeah.
And and maybe if you hold a stone long enough, it turns from a story stone to a soup stone.
Wonderful, Norm. And then when you take out from the soup, it's not only a stone, it's a gem. Oh, good.
There is a theme there for sure. Everything is linked together, no?
Yeah.
You guys made the link. I'm just telling stories here. You made the link.
You turned them really well.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, John Rowe, for putting this together. And it's been so much fun also, especially to meet people from around the world. So it's so nice to be all together.
Thank you, Mariella. And I've just put up, I always put up on my Facebook page exactly what's coming up. So if you want to see, I mean, you can go to the site and hit the schedule, but
yeah,
be reminded, if you friend me on Facebook, You know, I hammer it into people every day. You know, this is what we got. This is what we got. And
Yeah.
of course, I'm
Yes.
so proud of all our tellers, really.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm gonna go now. So I'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Ah.